That's salmon, not Nantucket.
No, that's not
That is not
Nantucket
Nantucket red.
Nantucket red like cranberry.
Okay, so I've
Dennis, we got to turn the volume down on the TV.
Oh, sorry.
echo. Oh.
Wait a minute.
Music earlier.
Hello.
All right, we good?
Stand for the pledge.
All right, welcome Bellingham. Today is Monday, June 21st. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to start tonight's meeting with a moment of silence. We lost a very important figure, Roland Arcand, a couple of days ago, so I'd like to ask us to have a moment of silence in his memory, please. Thank you. Roland's been part of our team for what, almost 60 years now? His wife
60
is
years. Yeah, he started when he was 17 and 76 years old. Well, his wife Joanne's been with the town common trustees since the town common was built.
and the very room we're in is named after his
This room, the Arcand meeting room, is named after his oldest brother.
oldest brother. Right.
Oldest brother.
Excellent. All right, let's start off with other business. Mary, are you? Yes, you're in your car. You can,
Sorry.
drive,
Hi,
you can drive and present at the same time, huh?
good evening, everybody. I hope you can hear me. And no, I am absolutely not driving. I am parked. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yep.
Fantastic. So I have two items that I would like to present to the board for your review and recommendation this evening. The first is a set of end of fiscal year transfers for the current year that we're in, which is FY21. You should all have received a copy of that via email this afternoon, but it's I'm sure Hillary has also included it in your packets. Does everybody have a copy of that?
Yes, we do.
Fantastic. So this is these are routine and customary end of year transfers where we have surpluses in some line items and needs in another line item due to some changing circumstances that have transpired during the current fiscal year. So you'll see all of the items. These are isolated to the general fund only, not any enterprise transfers. You'll see the items on the left where the funding sources are coming from, and the items listed on the right where those funding sources are going to. So there's 6 transfers that are included on the sheet in front of you. If anybody has any specific questions, I'm happy to entertain them.
Madam Chair, I have one question. Hey, Mary, it's Kelly.
Hi, Kelly.
So I see 200,000 coming out of the school budget, but I know that we are also going to be looking at a $475,000 transfer to the special ed reserve fund. So the school department had almost a $700,000 net, I don't want to say profit, but surplus.
No, surplus. Yeah. So Kelly, I that's a fair question. Obviously, the unemployment transfer at the top to cover anticipated costs for staffing and unemployment claims is listed here, and it's the bulk of the transfer. You have to remember that the school department has received a large variety of COVID-related funding funding sources, either through the state or federal government over the course of FY21. There was a lot of stimulus money that was applied to education for a wide variety of purposes, in addition to the fact that there was anticipated surplus in the FY21 budget. So to answer your question, yes, we do have this surplus available, but in particular, a big portion of it, which we're going to talk about next with the SPED transfer, is that there was some cost savings in that SPED line in our special education budget We had budgeted for what we knew at the time were the scenarios related to special ed. As the year progressed, there were some changes in some of the services. There was a reduction in some of the needs for the services that were provided. So we did see a surplus in those lines. So it was a combination of a number of things, but yes, there is a surplus to cover these.
Thank
One
you.
other thing, if I could, Cindy, is we had talked with Mr. Morano several months ago, anticipating some significant unemployment costs related to the positions that were hired last year for the virtual learning. And he made a concerted effort to try and set funds aside and make sure that there were funding available to assist with that unemployment. So obviously we appreciate that cooperation on their part to assist with the unemployment. So they made a great effort to get that done.
Any other comments or questions?
Question. So Mary, how did we get to the 200,000? I mean, is our exposure 300 and we did 200, or?
So right now, Michael, there is exposure. We do have claims from both the town and the school side, but we also are not done with the year yet. And so there are going to be anticipated claims through the end of the year.
It was an estimate.
But I mean, it's not based on the number of people and their salaries.
There was some rough estimating done. We had asked
Yeah.
some estimates together. You never know how long people are going to be out because they only collect until they get another job. But it's a trust, so those funds will stay in that trust, the unemployment trust. So it'll be helpful moving forward as well.
Exactly.
So I guess this might be a dumb question, but someone who would normally be a school employee and they wouldn't start again until September, when they get laid off now, do they get paid their unemployment for July and August?
It depends on their contract when they're paid.
Right.
It may very well be through August 31st, or if they're a 10-month employee, Mary or Joanne, they would get their final check in June for the summer months. Is that correct?
Right. Right.
Thank you.
Yes, that's correct.
So for the purposes of protocol, do we need to read it each? or
No, I
do we
just
wanna-
think you can approve the transfers as presented by the chief financial officer, and then you'll be signing off on that. So it takes a motion, and then it will, a motion would be to authorize the chairman to sign the end of year fiscal transfers as presented by the chief financial officer.
So the motion I see here is I move the board approve transferring 475,000.
That's
That's the
That's
second
No,
one.
no, not that one.
Page one.
We can do that one first.
You want to read this one?
Go ahead.
Anybody?
I don't have it in front
I'll
of me.
make a motion to
Okay.
approve the budget transfers, end of year budget transfers as presented by our CFO in the amount of $222,910,
To authorize the chairman to sign.
and to authorize the chairman to sign.
Second.
Cheers.
From Mr. Spencer, second from Mr. Martinez. Any other questions? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. All right.
Excellent. Thank you.
Now we have.
All right. And then are we ready to move on to the next one?
Why can't I get
Yes.
to the next one?
Okay, fantastic. So the next item for business is the transfer to the Special Ed Reserve Fund. And if you remember back at the November 18th, 2020 special town meeting had approved the creation of that SPED Reserve Fund. It was also supported unanimously by the Board of Selectmen to establish that fund. So this is our opportunity now to take surplus, as we had talked about moments ago, some surplus from some special ed line items and other areas of the school budget in order to transfer those funds into this reserve to be used for special ed purposes. And this requires an affirmative vote of the Board of Selectmen as well as the school committee to make that transfer. And I've given you the memo from the Director of Finance from our school department, itemizing the recommended amount of $475,000, which is under the maximum threshold. The threshold is a calculation against the school department's budget. So it moderates each year depending upon the school department's net school spending, that this is under the threshold, meets the requirements, and we are looking for your support for this transfer to the Special Ed Reserve.
Any questions for Mary?
Are we voting before school committee or vice versa?
You are voting before school committee. Joanne is scheduling a meeting with the school committee to take place prior to June 30th. I believe Joanne is on the call. The board has been briefed on this particular transfer. We just didn't have time to get it on the previous agenda.
That is correct. The meeting for the school committee is scheduled for this Wednesday at 6:45.
I move the board approve transferring $475,000 from the school department's fiscal 21 appropriation into the special ed reserve fund.
Second.
All right, first from Mr. Connor, second from Mr. Spencer. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. 5-0. Thank you,
Wonderful.
Mary.
Thank you very much.
Anything else while we have you?
No, I think I'm good. Thank
All
you.
right,
Thanks, Joanne.
safe travels.
Thank you very much, everybody.
All right, town council appointments by the select board.
So we do the town council, the first meeting typically after the annual town meeting. But we're doing it tonight. And then in June, we only have one other select board appointment, and it's for Memorial Day and Veterans Day committee. Those are the members.
Any
want to
questions or concerns on any of the people up for?
No, I just have questions for an increase in KP Law's rate.
I think it has stayed the
No, it
same.
stayed the same.
It's since we contracted.
Couple of years, 4 years.
Oh, they're great. I just been curious if
Really
if they came back to us
They have
and
not,
said we want a rate
they
increase.
have not notified us.
Okay.
Of the line since.
KP Law has not, the Labor Council.
I'll make a motion that we appoint town council KP Law for a term of office of 1 year, expiration of June 2022.
Second.
First by Mr. Spencer, second by Mr. Martinez. All those in favor, say aye. Opposed? None.
I'll make a motion that we appoint the Memorial and Veterans Day Committee, members being James Hastings, Samuel Cowell, Melinda Crawford, Kirk Crawford, Thomas Ernest Sr., Brandon Varela, Paula Saliba, Christopher Foley, Paul Tebow, and Laurie Fafford for the term of 1 year expiring 6 June of 2022.
Second.
All right, first from Mr. Spencer. We'll give this
Kelly.
second to Mrs. Grant. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. 5-0. So that's the next item, right, Lori?
Yep, and then
Dennis?
I've got some appointments, animal control officers, Tracy Taddeo for 1 year and Patrick Kelleher for 1 year. Those are the two full-time animal control officers that cover Bellingham and Franklin. Those are the long ones. Our chief financial officer, Mary McKinnon's been a quick 3 years for us, maybe not for her, but Mary's term is up in June, and certainly we appreciate the work that she's done. And our director of planning and economic development, Jim Cupper, is up for 1 year, and Jim's been told he's got some notoriety with all his FaceTime on Zoom.
FaceTime, Zoom,
Good,
TV
My
shows.
son-in-law
It's kind of a big
saw him at
deal.
events and said, "That's Jim Cupper."
I move to ratify, yeah, that's the word I was looking for, ratify Dennis Brain's appointments of animal control officer, CFO, director of planning and development.
Second.
First by Mr. Martinez, second by Mrs. Grant. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. The next one we do not need to do, Hillary, is that correct? Because it's,
So we can talk about it briefly if
Okay.
you'd like. Do you want to touch base?
Sure, we were looking to go ahead and implement the remote participation for the board so that board members would be able to continue to participate in meetings and really vote in meetings as long as the chairman and the majority of the board were here. So the chairwoman is here, my apologies, and majority of the board. So it'd have to be 3 members and the chair would have to be here and to participate remotely. But the governor extended the existing order that allows for remote participation through next May, I think.
It's
April.
April 22. Yeah.
So there's really no need to act on this. We can put this off until next April because with the executive order, the entire board theoretically could be remote. If we had a quick meeting that we had to pull together, as long as it's properly posted and available
Right.
to the public.
okay.
We can put that off until next April.
Yeah, so that's something we can look at next year. If we want to continue with this one.
Kelly, May abatements?
So these might require an explanation. It is on the abatements there because it does seem rather large. But Madam Chair, I'd like to present the abatements for May of 2022. Capital improvement in the amount of $180. Sewer in the amount of $59.20. Stormwater in the amount of $7,497.61. $7,449.61 if that was an error. Trash in the amount of $145.50. Water in the amount of $4,854.64 for a grand total of $12,736.95.
Any
Second.
questions or comments? Okay.
Yeah, just what the error was with stormwater.
So 353 Maple Street stormwater abatement, that was to fix an error. The stormwater is billed on a separate account and should not have been billed on the account for 353 Maple. The DPW did not catch it until the building was sold, and the abatements go back to October 2020 billing. And then there was Zero Friedman overbilled stormwater. That was the error. And then one big one was one that we had voted to abate penalties that were assessed in this fiscal year for a resident who was selling his home and has since rectified the problem.
And I know that Mary and Barbara are working on, looking at the stormwater system to make sure it doesn't.
So where is Hancock Reed? What's 353? I mean, that's literally, I'm trying to determine what building. Is on three
Madam
stories?
Chair, I'm sorry, Madam Chair, if I might be able to jump in.
Yeah, please.
Okay, it is, hi, it's the warehouse that contains the Snyder Pretzel and 7-Eleven headquarters. And what happened was when the stormwater accounts were set up, and you remember that we recently implemented this at the beginning of FY21, it required a great deal of time and effort to establish a series of new accounts, new stormwater accounts. And what happened in this particular facility is that it was actually billed twice. A bill for stormwater was sent to the owner of the property, and a second bill was sent to the tenant in those individual condos. So it was a true error that it was double billed. It was not double calculated in our estimates. I know, Mr. Connor, I'm going to anticipate your question about our original revenue estimates, but this was truly just an error in the billing that it went to both the owner and the tenant. And when the property changed hands, that's when it was identified. I have spoken with the DPW department. We are currently extracting the data from the utility billing system in order to analyze if there are any other duplicates across the database to make sure that this is not going to be a recurring issue.
Okay, thank you.
Any other
You got
questions?
it.
All right, we have a first from Mrs. Grant. We have a second.
Second.
I'm sorry, second from Michael Connor. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. All right. Mr. Kupfer, you have the stage.
Good evening, everybody. I just have a couple quick things for you guys. The first is under water conservation. So really, this one is just kind of to highlight some of the educational things that we've been doing or programs we've been doing for water conservation. Over the years, we've done a bunch of different things. Don and I have done Curious George episodes with the kids at the library and handouts to developers. And most recently, we've been doing monthly ads in the bulletin to conserve water. But really, the big program that I was just excited about to share is that we've sold another 86 rain barrels this past month to homeowners. So that brings the total to close to 250 over the past 2 years. Bellingham residents that now are using the rain, hopefully using the rain barrels and conserving water when they can. The other item is just in the master plan. And so that is, hopefully you have the plan itself in your packet tonight. And so really to just step back in December when we adopted this plan, the thought was to make it kind of a living document. I know the board was interested in the implementation strategies
And that's highlighted starting on page 48 of the master plan itself. And, you know, the good news is it hasn't been just a stagnant document. We've actually started to implement items already, things such as looking at rezoning of certain locations to align with infrastructure, seeking our 40B status of 10%, identifying lots for that, and becoming complete streets eligible and implementing that program. So those are all some of the goals that we've really already started to tackle. And so tonight is really just, I thought it would be good to just start that dialogue on what are some things that the board is interested in tackling in the coming year. And that's not something we have to obviously decide tonight, especially since you just got the print copies in your hand. And maybe I come back in a month or two when you've had time to really digest it. But you know, some of the things that the committee has prioritized as high priority are here in the matrix, and I see some of them that are, you know, low-hanging fruit, that things that I really would love to tackle here in the near term. One of which, if you look on page 50, which is part of the residential section of our implementation strategy, is C4, and that's housing choice designation. And that's just yet again another state program that was put together by the Baker administration to support housing. And with that, they've done a good job of creating programs that create pockets of funds that the towns can utilize. And so this would open up yet again another pocket of funding to use towards, it's supposed to be towards assisting housing, but you can also use it for things like infrastructure that support housing. And, you know, really, this is just really taking credit for what we've all accomplished to date, you know, with all the permitting and construction of housing. This will allow for us to seek that designation and potentially be able to use some funding to assist us in, you know, some of the impacts of that. One of the other items that I just wanted to highlight is in A3 of page 51, which is our economic development section. And that talks about exploring ways to improve the sign bylaw. And I know many of you are probably shuddering because you were part of that sign bylaw review 6-7 years ago, but I think this one might be a different strategy and intent on reviewing that bylaw. I know Tim Icardi and myself have had a lot of good conversations about ways we can improve it, just really in terms of cleaning up the bylaw and improving it so that things like one monument sign per plaza, or, you know, things like that cause clutter throughout our corridors. And then just lastly, you know, obviously some of the obvious ones here that I know you guys have, it's been near and dear to you guys, but under things like community facilities, A1 is obviously looking at strategies for the DPW facility. So that's obviously a high priority and things that we need to look at moving forward. But certainly, you know, if you have some early suggestions, or you certainly can reach out to me in the meantime between now and the next time I return. I would love to get your guys' insight and input on, you know, some strategies that you would like to see the planning department, the planning board, and other entities really pursue in the coming year.
Madam Chair.
Yes, please.
Okay, I'd just like to add, this is fantastic, Jim. And Jim and I had a conversation the other day about open land. And one of the things that I believe this town needs, and I brought this up before, is some form of assisted living facility, elder care centers. There is a fair amount of land, there's a fair amount of development going on, and I'm thinking that I'd like to see something along those lines, because this community, as we know, is more senior driven, and we really ought to need, you know, find some different type of housing options for our seniors in this town. And maybe that will free up some of the real estate that they own to bring in younger families. But more importantly, not just for that, it really is to take care of our seniors and allow them to stay in Bellingham and not have to move to Medway or Franklin or some other place where they have these beautiful assisted living facilities. I'd like to see us think how in the world we can get one of these developers to think along those lines and put an assisted living center or facility in this town, because people love it here. They don't want to move. Many people have been here 30, 40, 50 years, and they'd like to stay in Bellingham. So, Jim, that's from my own point of view, that's what I'd love to see us think of. You know, when developers come before you in your office, this is what we're interested in doing.
Exactly. And I know we talked about different housing options over the 2 years we were working on the master plan. And that's perfect guidance. That's things that we're seeking, because you're right, Don. I and the board get a lot of inquiries on, what are types of developments that would be beneficial in town, and if I have the guidance of the board to say, we really are seeking different options to kind of live in place, essentially, age in place, and assisted living is a great opportunity. I would certainly be able to share that with developers.
We were actually meeting with a developer not long ago, Jim, on a large residential project, and I know that you were making a strong pitch along that line. They were trying to figure out what they could do to improve the density that they'd be allowed to build on. And I think they took it to heart. I know they looked at it. I don't think it's gone anywhere. I think they're prefer to look at a dense zoning change, but I don't think that's going to happen either. But it is something that Jim has put out there, and we need to really put a push on it. I don't disagree at all.
Yeah, and it goes a long way when I think the developer sees that leadership is supportive of a certain type of development. It does go a long way in allowing for them to pursue engineering conceptuals at very least, which I think, as Dennis mentioned, at least one developer is pursuing.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I was just going to say, and we want to make sure that the planning board is kind of aligned with this as well, because we want to make sure if a developer is interested and said, hey, they're going to invest money to do all of the planning, they want to make sure that the planning board is has the same view as we do. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, so would an assisted living facility be covered under like the Dover Amendment as far as zoning bylaws?
So we do have under the special residential uses category of our bylaw, we have a highlight for assisted living, and that's actually why last town meeting the planning board brought forward the removal of the townhouse bylaw, was because that was kind of overshadowing some of the other uses of that bylaw. One of which being the assisted living, and I heard time and time again from developers, assisted living might be nice, but this townhouse bylaw is extremely lucrative. Why would I do that? And so, I shared that with the planning board, and they thought, well, we need to start pursuing other housing options. The master plan committee and others have also said that. So let's do something about it. So there's definitely a permitting mechanism for assisted living, and it's pretty flexible.
So Jim, are you looking for us to digest this and then agree with like the prioritization you have, or what are our next steps?
Yeah, I think next steps is maybe in a month or two, I could certainly return and we could have a little more conversation about what are some of the priorities that you see in here that you would like to see move forward maybe in the next year or two. And this could be done in a couple different ways. You could certainly share those thoughts with me in advance, and I could create a nice list for us to kind of narrow down that conversation. Or I could bring back some of these high priorities and we could whittle it down from there. It's up to the pleasure of the board.
Because Don, you and Kelly were part of this, right?
Yeah.
So
It is a
Dan,
living, breathing
Michael, and
document.
myself, it's a lot.
Oh, yeah,
To
no, I
digest,
think we
so-
just kind of take a look at it, and then I guess we outline what we think our higher priorities are, their high priorities, to kind of focus on it.
Does it make sense to look at like all the A's for each of the categories next time you're back and go
Well,
from there?
so, yeah, so I think on the right side where it has the priorities, if we focus mainly on the high priorities for the time being, and you could certainly call out to me some of the other ones if you really think that it's a pressing need. But looking over to the right column there with priorities and highlighting some of the ones that you truly think that we really need to jump on this. The planning department and others really should be getting going on this. Is highlighting that for our next conversation, and we can certainly start moving some of these forward. Like I mentioned, the housing choice program. I think that's just a no-brainer. We really need to move forward with that, and so that's something that I think which should happen in the near term. But there's many others here that if the board thinks is pressing need over these years. You guys have seen a lot of, growth in town and development. And if there's something that's as urgent to you guys or near and dear to your heart, I think it would be good to have that conversation soon.
All right, so maybe our next meeting is not until July, right? Mid-July?
Yeah.
Does it make sense to wait till August or
I think August would be. a good
give us some time to, okay, so Hillary, maybe you can make note of that.
I just laugh every time Jim says when he returns. If you never leave, Jim, how can you return?
All right, anything else, Jim?
I think that's all for this evening for me.
Great, all right, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Up next, we have Representative Michael J. Soder.
There's an iPad right there for you.
So I'm supposed to sit in front of that?
You can, or you can move it towards your.
Welcome,
Thank you.
you're late.
I see we're still enjoying technology after we passed. I'm sorry we're late. I got stuck. Sorry. Sorry,
Okay.
sorry, sorry. All right, well, thank you for having me tonight. I appreciate it. I know we want to highlight some things with the budget. The Senate approved their budget 2 weeks ago. And we are working on that. And now we're working on consolidating the two budgets. So we pulled all of Senator Fatman's amendments and all our amendments are all still in there. So we're just trying to go through the different towns and what we have. Obviously, this was a tight fiscal year. They want to try to get back on track as far as getting the rainy day fund and all that going again. So, I think realistically, everything's been flat. I think your local aid and both budgets is pretty much about $60,000 decrease from last year on both Chapter 70 and restricted government. So, where I do see some positives, obviously some educational funding. There's some positive, obviously the CARE Act money. We're going to be the second wave of the CARES Act money, which is but we're going to be getting all that money from the federal government. We're going to be voting on that also. So we're going to be looking at really what spend on that. There's going to be amendments to that. So I will say right off the bat, there are going to be 2 amendments that I'm going to file, which are going to affect more of the whole state, not just my district, but a lot of it in my district because it's local restaurants and mom and pop shops. I did file it last week, but it was ruled out of order. So we'll wait for the funding end of it. And what it will do is from July 1st of this year to December 31st, where I'm looking to exempt sales tax and meals tax and give it back to the restaurant owners through the federal CARES Act money. And that would be up to $1,000. That's just for that 6-month period. It would put instantaneous money into some of these restaurants. I have people, and actually Jim, I sent 2 of them today to Jim today, just on some federal money that we haven't coming their way on some grants that you as a municipality will be managing through local economic funds for grants that local establishments can apply for the federal government. So you're going to be getting that money. We checked with Mary today. It didn't hit yet, but it's probably going to soon hit for each time. So there'll be funds there that certain businesses can apply for expansion funds, capital funds, because I think what's going to happen here is, I think one of the things, April of next year, outdoor dining from the state standpoint is going to end. So I think a lot of towns are going to have to decide if they want to move forward with it going forward. So, but I think what you're going to probably require is not the loose restrictions kind of, and I say loose restrictions just based on what the criteria is. So I think that is a big plan. I think a lot of people realize they want to keep their outdoor seating going, which is a good thing.
So Mike, does that mean it'll be up to us to decide? Like,
Yeah,
what
so
local
you
town?
will be, so you're going to have to probably, whatever your outdoor seating plan is going to be, and that would be something you probably want to have Jim sit with you as a board and go over what that's going to have to look like and how you would want that to look. So, because right now, I mean, you had a lot of protection from the state to approve a lot of this stuff under the emergency orders and what we extended also just last week. So I think you're going to want to, take a hard look at that. I think a lot of restaurants, I can hope that we will. You're looking in Bellingham here, Coachman's a little bit different story because it's always had it. But you look at somebody like Bucky's or PJ's or Devlin's who invested money there, you're gonna have to figure out a long-term strategy.
No, Devlin's
That was
already,
awesome.
they already
Devlin's is
petitioned
awesome.
through the ABCC and got the approval, so.
Yeah, so I
that's
mean,
what the
they're,
other-
so
that's what the other restaurants are gonna have to do.
that they're gonna have to do. So I think they know that, maybe it's gonna be an investment. Some of them are larger than that, so they're big investments. So I think those are the things that I think that you're gonna be kind of inundated with. And that's what some of this renovation money from the state, these grants are for. The money comes locally. And there's gonna be they're looking at another wave of restaurant grants. My thing with the meals tax and sales tax piece of it is it's only up to 100,000 and only is for the sales up to $2 million a year. And what it does is it instantaneously puts money in. So they would still have to file what my legislation will do is they still have to file their meals tax. They still have to report their meals tax. They just want to pay their meals tax for that 6-month period. So the money stays in there. They still have to charge you the meals tax by the law. But it's a way to infuse cash instantaneously instead of them funding for grants and things like that.
That means we don't get that much.
You still get your portion of the money. You would still get you'll still get your portion, the municipality would, but the state would. So that could change because, you know, obviously negotiating to get that through, you're sometimes going to look at the bigger picture of it. But one of the things we are going to do in that legislation is exclude the exemption for the municipalities so they can maintain it. So that's something we're going to do with it. Do I think it's going to pass? Probably no. But where it's coming out of the CARES Act, it has a chance. So there are some. One of the other things that we're doing, we're talking about is also we want to get people back to work. We want to get things moving again, and we're hoping that the governor is going to be lifting the extra $300 unemployment soon because we think it's detrimental. Other states have done it, and it's proven to start getting the workforce back to levels that they need to get back to. I think as soon as New Hampshire made that announcement, it's like all of a sudden just people say we're not going to hit a chance. And I think what's going to eventually happen here is if he doesn't do it, we're going to have an employment situation where people are going to go back to work and they're not going to be the jobs there. So when they do come back, they're going to then what do we do? Are we forced to extend it again? I don't think that's a good idea. So I think we're looking to find ways to ask the governor to do it, but we're also looking for ways to also incentivize the governor to do it. A couple other things that we're looking at doing. A quick update. This past week with Dennis, Don DiMartino, we are finally, I think, at a very productive stage on the Hartford Ave overpass. I know I think Michael, Mr. Connor is the longest serving member on this, and he knows it goes back to when he was first elected. I know when I first moved here, it was first being discussed. And I promised, I promised Don DiMartino and Dennis before they retire, there'll be a new bridge.
So in the works anyway.
That's a plan.
Well, that would be good.
Yeah, but yes and no. And the good thing is we've always kind of been moving forward on the plan, so I think the designs are there. District 3, I will just tell you, the director of District 3 and I had a very good conversation. We already have a follow-up meeting scheduled for July 1st to stop the ball rolling where I would, it's a 4-hour meeting. I know Dennis, myself, probably not going to be in it for 4 hours, but DPW will be in it with District 3. I would suggest that maybe 2 members from this committee come to that meeting. Also, I think it would be worth it just to kind of express the partnership that we want, because one of the things that's going to expedite this is some of the things that the town's been doing on either side of the bridge with possible takings and negotiations. So what you're going to do is you're going to tie in that piece of it with a $15 million bridge. And the reason this came up is because of the bond bill last year. There is a section there, $1.5 billion to repair bridges. And a lot of it was to repair bridges that are failing, but this one's pretty close to falling into that situation. So not that the bridge is going to collapse, I don't want to make anybody nervous, but the bridge from a safety issue is a problem. Whether you have the development up there or not, the growth just in general between, excuse me, Medway, Mendon, Hope, Hopedale, all of this area, Bellingham, just with all the warehousing and everything else we have, the bridge definitely needs to be expanded. Now's the time to do it. So I think it's a great opportunity. We're there. I'm very excited about where we are. I think Dennis will agree. The conversation went very well. We have the undersecretary in this call with us. I will say I did reach out to the lieutenant governor. I reminded her of the meeting that she was here at. Actually, Cindy was pointing it out to her on the map. I have a picture of that I sent to her.
Got the evidence.
Because I said, all this works grant money is wonderful for the peripheral, but to get the major bridge that needs to be done fixed, we need to do.
It was a positive meeting as we've ever had on that bridge. We were talking about this literally since 2003. And the director, Barry Lorian, called back to set up a meeting July 1st to say, I don't want to say, he basically said he was embarrassed at the district's response over the last 15 years. These bridges don't get built overnight, but there's usually some momentum. You have private development interested, and so they're pulling it all together, getting the deputy secretary for transportation there at the meeting. I think it just highlighted the fact, because we talked about the history, we went back to say, we had a meeting in 2014 where we had WS Development committed to the design of that bridge, and the director of District 3 said, no, we're going to design it and we're going to get it going. And somehow or another that didn't happen.
I think we even had WS agreeing to pay for the bridge as long as it was agreed to be bonded, and they were willing to do it.
So they understand, and it as Mike said, I think it's got as much momentum as it's ever had. It's real. So I'm optimistic that something's going to happen in the next couple of years.
What time is that meeting? I'm off
Yes,
that
and
day,
that's one's
actually.
up.
It's an afternoon meeting.
Eric is just following through with it because the senator's office called us today. He can't attend, but I'm not, no disrespect to the senator, but we're not going to hold everybody up as if it fits for everybody. We've got to have this meeting, we've got to move it forward. So, really, the senators, folks can be involved in it, but really, we've got to get this thing moving. It's going to be in the new office in Worcester. I think we don't have to obviously block 4 hours. None of us, I think those are going to be for Don's team, his engineers and all those folks, but I think at the beginning of it, I think it would show a huge commitment if some of the board of selectmen, select board members were there. Sorry, I gotta get used to it. Sorry. Because not every town in my district does it that way, but we've got to figure it out to get this, and we've got to get the excitement. I think it's there. I think it's definitely there, and I've got the administration's ear on it, and I think they know how important it is. And I think everybody's embarrassed that something took this long to do.
So Eric will keep us in the loop on.
Eric is coordinating the whole schedule for everything. So
Dennis wants to
one of the other things that I did want to update you on is the TIP project from the bus barn in the center of town. That looks like that's on tap for next year. It looks like so. Yeah, so I'm excited about that. That's a $4.5 million, maybe $7 million job now. I'm very excited that that's coming to fruition. That started towards my last year being on the board here with you folks and going to those meetings and follow through as I got elected to get there and working with Jim to get this moved up, understanding the importance. It's going to be a huge project and a huge improvement. I hope it doesn't rain on the Memorial Day comeback parade next year, but hopefully we can figure that out, those logistics out. But we are I'm very excited about that. That is a great product. And short of anything major catastrophe happening, I don't foresee this product now going forward. So that's good. The $1 million bond bill for the center of town improvements, I noticed that we already started that. The challenge there is just getting the governor to release those funds. I'm tapping him with a lot of stuff right now, so I think I'm going to just tap the brakes on it a little bit, but I'll hit when the time is right. Bond stuff is going to be coming soon, so I know he's going to try to have it. He's going to ask us, but I think he wants to get through the budget, see where we are, just to make sure that what we have in the bond bill can be paid for in this fiscal year's budget. Some of the other things that we're doing is we still have our bill filed that I refiled for town of Bellingham. Bellingham is actually the one that pushed it forward, is the exemption for small businesses with a certain amount of value and amount of people. You asked me to increase that to, was it, Eric, was it 4 million? 4 million in evaluation, 20 or less? 20 or less employees.
10 or less employees, 20%.
And 20%
Yeah.
break on the taxes. So that is moving forward. Revenue Committee, which I'm the ranking minority member on this legislative period, we are just at a standstill because the Senate and the House can't figure out the rules on how to run a committee. So we're at a standstill. I can't figure that one out because there's more of us than there are of them. So we can outvote them, but that's where we are. So, however, we're able to get the millionaires tax on the ballot for November 2022. We managed to get that through, but somehow, I don't know, can't figure that one out. But we are moving that one forward. We're going to fight for that one this year really hard because I think it's desperately needed to be looked at. It needs to be adjusted to the times. I think when that was originally installed, it was the right numbers. I don't think those are the right numbers now. Things have changed. A lot of the businesses don't even qualify probably even more for that program. So we'll go from there as far as trying to get that through. Realistically, I think that's all I have. I know we're working with the school department on some different programs with Innovations Pathway. I'm really excited about what Superintendent Peter Morano is doing with Innovations Pathway projects. I think those are very exciting projects because it really brings a skills level to the high school that I think is desperately needed and attracts people to stay in the school system. And it excites them. The great thing about that Innovations Pathway program is it takes away some of the older programs in school that aren't as exciting and puts things into schools for reasons why kids want to leave the district. And I think one of the things, I keep pointing to where it's been very successful in my district has been Uxbridge. When you see where some of those kids that graduated this year are going to school, the things that they're doing, and some of the programs that they took and where it's kind of moved them, I think we can get there. And I think Peter's very excited about it. I think he's had some great conversations, and we're excited about where that's going to go. And Peter's looking at also the levels of the ways to cut down the charter school gap that we currently have. And there are programs out there for that. So we're working diligently, which, people say, well, why are you bringing that up during our meeting? Well, bring that up because no matter what, it's our budget, whether it's municipality schools, it's our total budget. And I think what Peter's doing is using the resources that we have available, and we're ready to work with the town to do what we need to do to move that forward. I think, anything I missed? I think we have it. I think, anything you want to ask?
Madam Chair and Rep. Soder, we actually have a member of our Bellingham community on
Yep.
Zoom that would like to address the
We'll have
board
to
while you were
turn
on.
That
This
way.
is Amy Hollins, if that is all right with you, Madam Chair.
Absolutely. I saw some writing up there and I didn't know what it's.
Sorry,
I don't
we
see
can't
it
click
here.
in when we see the chat button come up.
Madam
ahead,
Chair, do you
Amy.
remind me, turning?
Thank you and good evening. I appreciate this time. Representative Soder and I did have a conversation about 2 weeks ago about the intersection of Man and South Main Street. It is a death trap. I am celebrating 3 years in Bellingham today. And I can tell you, I bought on Bliss Road on a dead-end street, and it is horrifying to attempt to cross over South Main Street at that intersection. I believe it was last week or 2 weeks ago, there were 2 accidents. A new neighbor moved in on South Main Street, and they drive rather large vehicles, pickup trucks, SUVs, and through no fault of their own, when they're parked on their driveway, it causes an obstruction of visibility. With that said, there's already a blinking yellow light in place at that intersection. And I am requesting and imploring you to please place a traffic signal red, yellow, green where that blinking yellow light is.
So Amy, thank you for coming on the call. And I did leave you a voicemail saying that, we're looking into it, and Dennis and I have had conversations with Don DiMartino. And currently what's happening is, you know the language better than me,
Yeah,
Dennis. but
they're
it's a survey.
evaluating to see, he believes the warrants will be met, meaning there's enough traffic there, whether or not it makes sense to put a full-blown signal that close to Cook's Corner is the question, but certainly at a minimum, I think there's got to be some sort of a crosswalk light there, activation, but not to say there couldn't be a full-blown traffic light, but the engineers will take a look at it, have a report back. I know you would ask about it. It is it's a tough crossing.
It's a scary crossing, especially for those that are walking for exercise. There is a crosswalk which is largely ignored. The yellow light means nothing. Tonight, I was behind someone who was swerving all over the road and almost hit a mother with a child in a carriage. Unfortunately, this was a Woonsocket driver, I'm sure, a Rhode Island driver. But this happens where Man Street could either use some speed bumps or a traffic light. It's become a major thoroughfare, and our children are at risk. We have a lot of children in the area.
Dennis, how long does it typically take for the research to?
I'll get with Dawn and
Okay.
get back to you on.
So Amy, I will connect back with you once I have a time frame, but I didn't want you to think we're not doing anything. There's a couple of key steps that need to be done from a collecting of data.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
How we can move forward, but I appreciate you coming on to the call tonight.
I just didn't want it to get lost in the sauce, if you know what I mean.
I hear you, all over.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative Soter.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Michael and Eric, I'd like to publicly thank you for the Herculean tasks you guys took on for the members of Bellingham and the community, whether it was unemployment or just you guys have been so available and so helpful. And I know I speak on behalf of all of our residents when I say thank you for, putting us first and foremost. Really appreciate it. I know it's been a long haul.
Anyone that got a vaccine at that Uxbridge
Oh,
clinic,
right.
it wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for representatives.
That was, people ask me what, there's a lot of things I can look at to be proud of in this job. There's a lot of things that I shake my head at, but then I look at that one, and that one to me was probably, first and foremost, probably one of the biggest, I could say one of my biggest accomplishments. I know Mr. Spence might argue that getting 160 people to vote for a Republican bill is a huge task in the state legislature.
Right.
Against. I that one was a big deal for me.
It was a game changer.
It was a game
People,
changer for a lot of people
access-wise.
because I don't think, and I don't think we would have the vaccine rates we have right now. And to some degree, they are where they are. But I don't think we would have the vaccine rates that we have right now, or even just the kids that did get them at the schools and whatnot. Having that accessible, because people just weren't going to Gillette. I mean,
You
they
heard all
just
the
stories
Yeah.
and getting people in it. I thought the horror show of this pandemic was just the unemployment cases. I didn't realize, I think I said at one point to Eric, it was like deja vu all over again with the vaccine.
Yeah.
Because it's tough. People were ready. And, I think the governor will tell you it was an epic mistake on how the system started. I just still can't figure out with all the colleges we have in the state, that's the best we could come up with at the beginning of it. But getting that in Uxbridge, do I wish it was a little bit earlier? Absolutely. But it's
Uncharted
okay.
waters here.
It's it. That's it. And I do want to remind folks that I think Eric, join me up here for 1 second. because the PUA, I just want to talk about unemployment for a second. So it's very, very important to anybody public that's watching, that we have to make sure that if you are getting pandemic unemployment assurance, which is different than Department of Unemployment Assurance, because you didn't qualify. There was paperwork that was sent out to you. You probably called our office. You probably had us work with you on it. You've got to answer that question. Otherwise, you might not get it next week. You might not get it the week after. You are going to get one of those letters in the mail that said that you signed under perjury of law. You're going to have to pay the money back. And they'll take it and they'll garnish future wages. If you get another job and you get unemployed, that sits there. You won't get unemployment. So please don't, there's nothing I can do for you. Nothing I can do for you. They just extended it to July 1st, right? July 1st. Nothing that I can do after that. They don't fill out that paperwork. So please get with us as soon as possible. If you need help, we're here to finish that off. We've sent out emails to all of our constituents under the PUA program. And, you know, we're here to help you. And we are going to be, you don't have to wait for office hours. No. My number's posted here, our cell phone number, our Google number. Everything is put my office number. Although we probably want you to use the Google number right now because we're in the middle of moving offices. So our old office number is not there. Our new office number is there, but some people have trouble getting through. And that's another thing. I am now in room 167 of the West Wing of the State House. So I'm no longer in 443. What was before? 443. No longer in the dungeon. I actually have a window.
Nice. There you go.
Don't have full walls, but I have a window, which is a positive upgrade. But you know, we're going to be, once we get open again, and we'll be able to have the public back in. I just want to echo just one more thing. You know, this has been a tough 15 months. This has been easy on a lot of people, and Eric has definitely taken his fair share of phone calls from folks in Bellingham. And it's the unemployment stuff and everything that we've been through this past 15 months. This guy is definitely taking the brunt of it. So, and I know he's helped every single person. He's been the go-to. He's been the go-to. Actually, I think getting to the point where other people in the State House of Commons now that help him. But he's formed great relationships with the Department of Unemployment folks to get answers, and that's the whole key of trying to get this result. So we're there, but please, that PUA thing is extremely, extremely, extremely important. I can't stress it enough. Do not wait. Because after July 1st, there's nothing my office is going to be able to do, except to help you create a payment plan. That's probably about the extent I will be able to help you. So,
All right, well, thank you both for joining us.
any other questions, anything else? We'll look to follow up on, hopefully we'll confirm, Eric will firm up the dates on that, but I'm excited about that. That's next big thing. Look, at Bellingham is going to finally get the infrastructure it's deserved, and I think we're on our way to seeing a lot of this stuff happen, and I'm excited about it. And I think it will make a lot of the development we've had in this town flow a lot easier, and people will see everything that we've said all along. When I was sitting over there all along, we said we need these projects to improve the infrastructure. I think you're going to see some massive investment. You've already seen it. You're going to see another $7 million next year, just in that section alone, which is going to be huge.
It's actually an exciting time to live in this town, work in this town, be a part of this town. Really, it's a very bright future.
What you've got going on 140, I will say, what you've got going on coming into the archway of what I call Bellingham, from Maple Street down in, just the upscale apartment complex that you're going to have, the upscale built houses that you're going to have behind you, the reconstruction of the road coming in, just the restaurants. I think you're going to have that atmosphere that I think all of you have been, and I think all of us have been striving for, as leaders of the town, past and present, to where it is. And lastly, I want to just let the town of Bellingham know, and its select board members, tomorrow we will be honoring Roland during the session with a moment of silence. It will go into record. We will record it. we will get the recording so that if the family chooses, you can play it on Access Television, but we will capture it's a moment of silence and we will be
Very nice.
so, and God bless his memory. But he's been a huge asset. But I really, this town is our kingdom, I say, because it's there. It was a huge part of it. So, thank you all for having me. I definitely will have more updates that could come back. We will be holding coffee with the rep in August and office hours. We're going to try something different with the coffee with the rep thing. But I think where I'm so accessible, I don't think anybody shows up for these things. But we're going to try it, see what happens. Again, I always tell people don't wait till office hours come. Because you wait till office hours, that's crazy. Bureaucracy, you lose that same pace. You have to have that stuff.
We know where to find you.
Exactly. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank
you.
Take care. All right, anything under old business? Anybody? New business?
I just like to bring something up. We're all sad that Roland passed. And maybe this is a bit quick, but initially the thought came to do something to memorialize Roland. I know we've memorialized his family around town, but we have the beautiful benches out front. Maybe there's something along those lines. We could do something similar from the select board. Maybe it's in the town common, maybe it's here. I'm not sure. I'm just throwing the idea out. We would love to do something to memorialize Roland for everything he's done for this town. So I don't know what we do to start it. If it's a bench like that in front of here, or if it's in the town common, and probably has to get approved by the trustees, but
Somehow, I don't think that would be a problem.
I don't
Maybe
either.
we can combine everything together, bring the family in,
Yeah.
play the proclamation, the moment of silence, maybe do a proclamation for him.
reserve someone.
And
to-
maybe
I
unveil
don't know
the
what to
bench or
do.
something.
I think that stuff done.
You can look at the options.
Okay.
And I have a sense of what the board would like to do, dedicate, dedication.
Maybe it's part of the parks, maybe we have one of the
Right.
parks or something along those lines.
Okay, anything else under new business?
Police staffing, if you can discuss that.
Absolutely. We've had, unfortunately, a couple of police officers announce that they're leaving. We have 4 in the academy right now, so certainly it's a tough time as far as being stretched thin. I know the school resource officers being assigned to shifts over the summer, but we'll be back in the schools in the fall. But, I think the goal is to go ahead and call for another civil service list. I think civil service is getting to a point where we really need to take a hard look at it, because it really brings the recruitment process to a screeching halt. When you have vacancies in the fire department, you advertise and you interview and you hire. When you have vacancies in the police department, you also have to plan it out because there's a process involved. So we have a negotiation coming up with the police association. It does require bargaining and town meeting vote, but obviously if you come to an agreement at the negotiating table, and chances are it's going to pass at town meeting. So I think that's probably one of the things we need to take a hard look at. But once again, I know anyone who attended participated in those Tuesday meetings knows the chief would often mention the fact that he was down several officers, had several in the academy, and as I say, actually there are 5 in the academy right now. But the department's down, including these 2. I believe it's 8 officers right now. So we've got 5 in the academy.
What's the ideal number that we, or baseline, I should say?
Our high water mark was 32 at one point in time. And that's when we had a plan in place to
State
hire.
recommended 2 per 1,000.
Yeah, I think that's
2 per 1,000, so we're 16.5, so it's 32, 33.
We're probably
We're at 8, you said?
no, we're at 25. We're down.
Yeah.
We're
We're down 8.
25, down 8.
But with
okay.
Maybe
minimum
putting on our
staffing, we're in
badges
trouble
when we're
with
at
paying
8.
overtime.
Yeah, we'd be running out there.
So then it's just a question with the amount of, can police officers work the details that are going to be occurring out in the street and pass on overtime
on the force.
Yes. Yeah. But we haven't had an issue with, in that regard that I'm aware of. We have minimum manning staffing where we can drop to as low as 3 on the day shift, 7 to 3, and as low as 4 on the 3 to 11 shift and the 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. shift. So our minimum manning is 3, 4, and 4. The personnel cannot violate those levels any more so than we can. So individuals are ordered in. So you could say, I'm not going to take it, but what ends up happening is who's ever on duty could be ordered in. It's happened plenty of times. Is ordered to stay and has to do an additional shift. So it does
So
happen.
public safety will not be impacted by people standing doing details up front.
Yeah, we meet our minimum manning levels.
I didn't know if we had to go to other towns because there's gonna be a lot of police details needed up here.
We go to other towns for the details, but not for staffing.
Right, no, I agree.
Don't they have to be offered, the details to be offered to our officers
And they
first
are.
before we go out of town, right? And they are.
Absolutely. Certainly, in the summer in particular, there's a lot of detail work, not
Yeah.
just here, but everywhere.
Everywhere. Yeah.
So, but, the minimum manning is there to protect the officers as well as the
So give
community.
some, I'll have a conversation separately with you.
All right, anything else under new business? All right, over to you, Dennis.
Yeah, just a few things. Our land auction is Wednesday, 12 o'clock. There are 2 parcels going up for sale, 2 vacant properties that have been vacant for quite some time. One on Lake Street and one on Robert Street. If you want more information on it, it's on the town's website. The Zico's group is handling the auctioning process for us, and they've got quite a reputation. So I think we're going to have a good crowd here for those properties.
It's gonna take place right next
It's
to-
going to take place right in the parking lot. We've asked employees to park. I talked to the Pastor Rodrick's about being able to utilize their parking lot during the middle of the day. So he's allowing employees to park over there just to try and make things as convenient as possible for people that are coming to participate in the auction. So I think it's going to be a successful auction. And as Representative Soder said, work in the town center has begun. If you take a look at the utility company, they started putting poles in at the beginning of the project. Usually it's at the end,
Yeah.
and we're yelling and screaming because the project can't be completed because the poles haven't been moved. But it's just the opposite. And if you look at the first pole that they placed, it's impressive as to how wide it's going to be. It's pretty
Oh, on Easy
considerable.
Street, right?
Oh, right
No,
up front.
right in
Oh, up
front.
here?
Right here.
They were
And it's
doing-
the
And we can't get that pole down on Maple Street. We've been trying for several years, but they can put a pole up here.
It's almost done. It's almost there.
It is almost there.
It's almost
No, I
there.
said it's a good point.
Well, don't let them put the pole there until they take that one down.
I
know. Jeez.
Yeah.
I'm just waiting for someone to take it out.
Couldn't they just move that one?
Yeah, they could.
Why not?
Someone's gonna take it out. I'm surprised it hasn't been done.
Unfortunately, it's the underground connection, the electrical connection from the pole to that business. But it's been dragging on for a long time. It really is. But on a high note,
Yeah.
I just crack up. I remember Mr. Corner brought that up years ago.
Yeah.
I think there's only one more thing, one more step left.
I think he's
Yeah.
given up.
No,
I drive past it every morning.
That's right, every morning.
5 mornings.
You're- Okay, that was all that I had. I'm afraid to bring anything else.
No, no, just being funny. They can put a pole in, I know, but they can't take that before.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Kelly B.
Kelly. Do we have to say all those in favor, say aye?
Aye.
Opposed? None. All right. Thank
Boy,
you.
I tell you, I am really